Hello, friends. What are hypermobile vaginal walls and why does it actually matter? I'm Janice Mitchell. I'm a pelvic health physical therapist. I have severe vaginal prolapse and I'm hypermobile. And so these two things have intersected in my life and I'm going to share because I want you to know some of the risk factors and what are some things that you can do to help prevent and also to address hypermobile vaginal walls. So, number one, why does it matter? It matters because people with vaginal walls that move too much are at higher risk for pelvic organ prolapse and for urinary leaking. And so this is basically where those walls don't have the fascial support that they need. So here is a pretend vagina. Okay, and so the walls are nice and upright here, but with hypermobility, those walls are moving too much. So it might be the top of the wall that's moving, the bottom of the wall that's moving, it might be the front wall or the back wall, or it could even be both walls that are moving too much. So what is hypermobility? Hypermobility is basically the ability of your body to move too much. So here's an example on me. Like, this is not a normal amount of motion. That is hyper or more than what would be considered the normal range. And hypermobility affects potentially so many body systems. It can affect our connective tissue, and so it makes us just extra stretchy. So connective tissue is kind of like a spider web that is wrapping around all of our joints, our muscles, our organs, our ligaments, and it's providing support there, structural support. And so if you're a hypermobile person, that connective tissue is going to give more than a normal person, okay? In your pelvic floor, you actually have muscles that are kind of like a trampoline, and you have the fascia that works with those muscles to help provide support. Now let's see what it actually looks like on a pelvis. So here we are, here's the pubic bone in the front and tailbone in the back, and we're gonna open up the pelvis, and we have three organs that would be at play here, and three canals in vaginal prolapse. We have the bladder and the urethral canal. This is the front vaginal wall. We have the uterus and the vaginal canal. So the bladder and the urethral canal, that's where urine exits. That's where you pee. Uterus and the vaginal canal, this would be where you have a vaginal delivery or you have menstrual cycle blood coming out. That's where that, or vaginal discharge that comes out of that opening. This is the back or the posterior vaginal wall. And then we have the rectum and the anal canal. And so the two walls here are really important. And you see how they're kind of upright there to help keep that vagina where we want it to be and to keep the organs that are behind those walls also where we want them to be. So hypermobility is where that wall has lost some support or is extra stretchy and it's moving more than we want it to. So it can happen to the front wall or the back wall. It can happen a little bit, or it can happen where that bulge could actually go all the way down to the entrance or past the entrance of the vagina. And so some people feel a literal vaginal bulge, like you feel like you're sitting on a golf ball, or you feel extra tissue there when you're taking a shower. You feel down there and you're like, what was that? Some extra tissue that you didn't intend for to be there. So what to do about hypermobile vaginal walls? Number one, find these guidelines and review these guidelines with your birth provider. So there are ways to reduce your risk of severe perineal tearing and levator ani avulsions. And I have a lot of resources on both of those things. So if you reduce your risk of the trauma and the injury to the fascia during a vaginal delivery, then you're ultimately reducing your risk of pelvic organ prolapse. It's kind of a domino effect where you start to have that extra stretch in one area or that injury in one area, and then it can impact other areas. The big thing that we're looking at that's a huge risk factor for pelvic organ prolapse is a widened levator hiatus. So the hiatus is basically this opening that baby is going to pass through as it's exiting the vaginal canal. And a widened levator hiatus means that deep layer of muscles in there where that baby has to exit through, that opening stays open. It's not closing like it should. And it can be temporary or it can be long-term. And so by reducing risk, that's one way to address hypermobile vaginal walls. Now, let's say that you're like me and you have hypermobile vaginal walls, you have pelvic organ prolapse, you've had leaking. And so what are some things we can do to help support those walls? Number one, addressing pressure. So any kind of pressure that is pushing down on that pelvic floor is going to increase that tissue stretch. Now, it's not functional for us to walk around on our heads all day, right? With our feet up in the air. There's going to be pressure. There's gravity. There's organs. There's the things you eat, the things that you do. So managing the pressure and then optimizing the support from below. And there's multiple ways that we can do both of those things. By no means am I saying you can never run or jump, but if running or jumping is exacerbating and making your symptoms worse, you may not have that balance that we want of support and pressure management. And we need both of them to be successful. So I hope that this was helpful. One last thing before we go for today, I want to go over two main types of support for hypermobile vaginal walls. So there are things that we can insert inside the vagina that help support the inner walls. And so it could be easy things that are very accessible, like a tampon. So inserting a tampon for a lot of people helps to support those walls on the inside. There are medical grade things called pessaries. So you can also be fit by a healthcare provider with a pessary, and a pessary would sit inside that vagina to help lift those walls. But there's also something that's over the counter that's a lot easier, and I like it better than internal support personally, and that's external support or perineal compression. So basically, the concept here is that you're wearing something, and wearing that something that has that perineal compression is lifting and supporting that tissue and those walls from below, and that can really make a huge difference. So think about those walls that may be sagging down and you're lifting from below, and that is called perineal compression. I created a perineal compression device called the pelvic bra. It's very sleek, low profile. Here's what it looks like on. You can wear it with your own underwear. You put your underwear underneath and then you put the pelvic bra on. Or you can use some of our reusable cotton liners that work with the pelvic bra, very low profile. If the pelvic bra isn't for you, that's okay. There's many other types of perineal compression. I've had pelvic organ prolapse since 2000, at least, maybe even before, and I didn't know it. And I've just released this in 2024. So I've been using perineal compression for over 20 plus years, and there's a lot of good options out there. And some of the things you may even have in your closet, like compression leggings or some kinds of shapewear. My point here is pelvic bra can be really beneficial, but if that's not for you, there's a whole lot of other options out there. So try perineal compression for hypermobile vaginal walls. Try internal support for hypermobile vaginal walls, and then also pelvic floor muscle training, because the pelvic floor muscles wrap around the vagina. So even if they were injured during childbirth, if you're still in that first year at least, there's a lot that can be done. Like you're still in that healing phase, and we really want to work on those pelvic floor muscles and help to support those muscles during that healing phase. But if you're after year one, that's okay too. There's still a lot of things that can be done, and pelvic floor muscle training is an integral part of addressing and living with hypermobile vaginal walls and hypermobile other structures. So I hope you found this helpful. If you have questions, drop them below. I'm here to help you live your life. Do what you love with who you love, without pain, without pressure, without leaking, without that vaginal bulge or a golf ball hanging outside your vagina. It's possible. You don't have to have surgery if you don't want it. There's a lot of wonderful things that we can do. Thanks again. Bye-bye.